Okay, let's just do a recap of the games real quickly here for you. And if you got a comment about one of the teams, one of the games you'd like to make, feel free. Chargers, Cincinnati Bengals. I said it was going to be a shootout. It had to be Justin Herbert versus Joe Burrow, and it was. First half of the game, here's Justin Herbert driving the Chargers down the field, built a 27-6 lead. And I thought to myself, God, that's what Air Coryell and the Dan Fouts era looked like. I mean, they were just launching missiles and rocket shots. He kept completing big passes, chunk yardage. He had a stretch. Get this, John. He had 6 straight completions of 20, 29, 20, 21, 20, and 26. Wow. I mean, he was just electric in the first half. And I said, yeah, that's what Air Coryell looked like. And then in the second half, the only word that came to my mind the whole bloody second half when Cincinnati came back to tie it at 27-27 in the final 2 minutes was chargering. They're going to screw this sucker up. And they almost did.
They almost did.
So the Chargers wound up winning it. The Chargers go to 7-3 on the season. Cincinnati's got every right to be upset. I mean, Justin Herbert wound up the day with 362 all-purpose yards, throw and run, and he has now become a real danger. He has become what John Elway, a young John Elway, used to be, running when plays break and making huge gains. Or now the threat of running forces your defense into stress because he can bust big runs and he can throw the ball down the field simultaneously as he starts that big runs. So he has arrived as a star. I felt bad for Joe Burrow. You see the scowl on his face? He got no help at all. He threw for 356, 3 more touchdowns. Last week he threw for 426, and he still lost. He's got no help around him. And I'll tell you, this may be the shabbiest year of officiating I have ever seen in the league in modern times, even with instant replay. Last night, Brad Allen, who should probably be applying for working an overnight job at some carry-out convenience gas station. Brad Allen, the referee, blew 5 calls in that game. All of them went against Cincinnati. Ooh. He blew 3 calls in a 24-second span at the end of the first half. One of them was on a roughing the quarterback hit on Herbert that was not roughing the quarterback. Another was a pass interference call on a ball that was not catchable, and 2 receivers got tangled up. And the third one was supposedly a cut block that was not a cut block because a guy got thrown into a Charger player. It was brutal. And then on the final series, Joe Burrow got 2 blows to the face mask. Brad Allen's crew swallowed their whistles. 5 blown calls, all of them against Cincinnati. But I give the Chargers credit. They had to step up. They did. They almost lost it. That's one win in the check column that they had to prove they could get. They did. Next weekend, Monday night, Lamar Jackson, Derrick Henry, Baltimore Ravens. They got to check another box off to prove who they are. Kansas City, Buffalo. You know, I kept saying this is the most unimpressive 9-0 team I've ever seen. It finally caught up to them. They could not come from behind. Can't take away anything they did in 8 come-from-behind wins this season. But Josh Allen just outdueled Patrick Mahomes. Allen had 262 yards passing, 57 yards rushing, including the back-breaking touchdown. Buffalo against a really good Kansas City defense, 9 of 15 on third downs. But Kansas City just dug a hole, never climbed out of it. And for the Bills, and I don't think this is a complete roster, especially on offense, but for the Bills, this was really a statement game for them to beat Kansas City. I bet they see each other in the playoffs again. Pittsburgh, Baltimore. Please explain to me how the Steelers have 8 wins. You know, the Steelers that had a Neanderthal offense at the beginning of the season. The Steelers are 2 rental quarterbacks that other teams didn't want on 1-year contracts. And now Russell Wilson is playing like vintage Russell Wilson. I mean, it was smash ball. Thank goodness for Chris Boswell, 6 field goals. Pittsburgh wins that ball game. Defense had an interception, 2 fumble recoveries, 3 sacks, stopped the 2-point conversion, held Baltimore. Baltimore's offense was averaging 452, held Baltimore to under 250 yards, held Baltimore to 3 of 12 on third down conversion. Pittsburgh, they did all this with a Neanderthal offense. What an unbelievable job. At one point in that game, Lamar Jackson was 10 for 24 throwing the football.
Wow.
10 for 24. Just absolutely amazing. Miami Raiders, Tua Tagovailoa, 288, 3 touchdowns. Gardner Minshew quit turning the ball over, but they don't have enough firepower. He threw for 282 as the Raiders go to 2-8 on the season. This kid, Brock Bowers, this is big-time stud. Tight end, 13 receptions for 130-plus yards. I was really, really impressed with the tight end. But the Raiders are now 2-8 on the season. Miami's trying to claw its way back into the playoff race. Chicago, Green Bay. Jordan Love found a way. He kept them in the game by throwing touchdown passes early. Then he scored on a run with under a minute to go. Green Bay finally put away the Chicago Bears. They had to block a field goal right at the end of the game to win that game. Caleb Williams, under the new offensive coordinator, didn't turn the ball over the first time, didn't take 9 sacks as he did the week prior. Threw for 231, ran for 70, but that head coach is in big jeopardy. He might get fired, Ed Eberflus. New York Jets, Indianapolis Colts. The Jets, Jets, Junk. What a mess. Jets are 3-8. Aaron Rodgers, so pedestrian. He's got all these skilled people around him and it just has not come together. 184 yards passing, took 3 sacks, 1 touchdown. Anthony Richardson, who had been benched because he's played so poorly, he of 44% completion rate. Anthony Richardson, 272, a touchdown through the air, 2 touchdowns running. In the final game, I'll just throw this as an add-on. Denver Bo Nix arrived yesterday.
Oh, that was nice.
What did I say last Thursday? Preview this. Atlanta doesn't play real well on the road. Atlanta got clipped on the road. What was it, 38-6? Bo Nix, 314, 4 touchdown passes, best game of his young life. Tell you, Sean Payton's doing a great job coaching this kid up. Denver, of all people, is 6-5 on the season. That's really hard to believe. So, John, did you have visitations with Air Coryell, or were you scared about chargering in that game? And you want to comment on some of the others?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of emotions in that game, right? The one line that I remember hearing is how the announcer said that Joe Burrow said that he was playing the best quarterback of his career, and yet he was losing. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, they lost some pieces on offense, but this is all on the defense, right, for the Bengals. So what did the Bengals do differently in the second half?
The Chargers got real conservative. Chargers tried to run the ball, kind of eat the clock, and they couldn't run it. And then Herbert, there was a stretch. Justin Herbert went 6 for 20 throwing the football in the second half. 6 for 20.
Charging.
Yeah, charging. And they lost their rhythm and their mojo. And the Chargers secondary, I still don't think it's a great secondary. Even if they got Derwin James, personal fouls and all. The Chargers secondary just didn't cover Jamar Chase or Taj Boyd very well. And Joe Burrow kept running patterns and kept hitting. They almost hit the Hail Mary at the end of the game. Boyd was open right on the goal line, and the ball popped up and then got batted away, but he had his hands on it for the game-tying touchdown, which would have sent that sucker into overtime. So Cincinnati got hot, got into a rhythm. The Chargers got too conservative. They had 7 possessions in the second half and had 1 field goal. Charger offense of the first half, where to go in the second half? Too conservative. So the play calling, that's how Cincinnati got back in the game. And then Cincinnati secondary broke down on the final drive and 3 pass plays, game over.
The curse of the Spanos. That's what it is. The other comment I want to make is about Baltimore against Pittsburgh. And I watched that game and it was entertaining, but you thought that Baltimore's offense was going to be too much for the Steelers, that they were going to overwhelm them. Lamar Jackson, MVP candidate. What happened?
They dropped a ton of guys into coverage. They spied Lamar, so if he moved the pocket, somebody moved with him and took away the running dimension. And then he kind of got out of sync because he couldn't find receivers, and he started to take hits. And Derrick Henry only had 62 yards rushing. They normally play power ball with him. Did not happen. But just Pittsburgh's defense just beat him up. And Baltimore had 12 penalties. Talk about coming out of character. And Baltimore's secondary didn't make enough plays on defense. I mean, I was shocked that a John Harbaugh team would play that badly. Here's a stat for you. John Harbaugh is 1-8 against Mike Tomlin in the AFC
How's that
North.
possible?
Yeah, how's it with that team? So, I mean, Pittsburgh earned this one. I mean, It's not pretty. You know, if you look at the skyline of Pittsburgh, you still see the old steel mills
Mhm.
and all that industrial silt and all that. You know, there's a gray.
Mhm.
That's the way Pittsburgh plays football.
Yeah, yeah,
It's not sexy.
right.
It's not sparkly.
That's the way they've always been, you know, the
Yeah.
steel curtain and everything. And by the way, the Chiefs Bills, that has really turned it into a great AFC rivalry.
Oh, yeah. And we'll see them again in the playoffs.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, okay, that's all things NFL. You got to comment on any of the games that we've just commented on. That Fans Forum chat box is open. Jump in early. Now, we don't need you to write a book. You know, just give us a couple of good sentences of either questions or opinions. Don't write a book that fills up the whole screen. But chat box is open. Fans Forum, all things NFL.